Hello and welcome to my easy to understand guide to the Component 1 A-Level Media Studies exam. In this video, I'm going to go through what the papers are going to look like, what you should be looking out for, timing, and I'm going to show you a physical example of a paper that is freely available on the exam board's website, just so that you can be prepared and know what to expect from the actual paper itself. Obviously, quick proviso, I cannot anticipate any questions. As long as you are looking at it and just looking at the structure of the paper, I think that's the most important thing at the moment. Okay, so on the screen at the moment, this is the front sheet of an A-Level Component 1 paper, okay? So on this front sheet, this is exactly what you would have in the exam. Obviously, yours won't say sample assessment materials on it because it would be a real paper. But you can see it is 2 hours and 15 minutes for Component 1. And you will get an 8-page answer booklet with it. And there will be a video resource that you will get shown in the exam for the first question, and there will be a print resource to use with the second question. You have to answer every question on the paper, so there's no optional questions. You answer every single one. The important thing, if you are worried about timing, is that on the front cover, it does give you some advice about how long to spend on the two sections. So it tells you that ideally you should be spending an hour and a half on section A and 45 minutes on section B. Section B is always going to be 45 marks. So 45 marks, 45 minutes means that section B, you should be spending a minute per mark on those questions. My advice would be to A, make sure you can tell the time, which I appreciate is a big deal for some people. And B, when you get in that exam, as soon as you get in there, look at the end time, calculate 45 minutes back from the end. And make sure you keep an eye on that time, because that is the time where you absolutely must change to the section B questions, because that will then give you those minute per mark for the 45 marks for section B. If you don't change over to section B when you've got 45 minutes left and you overrun on section A, it is highly likely you will run out of time. All it takes is a minute here or a minute there, and you will inevitably end up missing like a 12-mark question on section B. And that will drop your grade down massively. So when you get in the exam, you look at the end time, work out 45 minutes before then, and know that that is the time you're going to swap to section B without fail. So this is the first page of questions. This is section A. Section A will always include a media language question and a representation question. Now, because of the way the exam is structured, I don't know if it will be the media language question first or the representation question first. They will mix it up depending on the year. What you have to remember is the media language question is always worth less marks than the representation question one. And the media language question will always be on a unseen product or products, whereas the representation question will be a mixture, it'll be a comparison between something unseen and one of your set texts. So it means that for the representation questions, it's worth more marks. You've got to write more. It's about more products. So the representation question is more important in terms of marks and weighting. But it depends which question has the video clip. There will always be a video unseen, either for media language or representation. Now, in this example, they had an unseen TV advert, basically, for the Save the Children campaign. So their first video clip was a TV advert, and it was a representation question in comparison to WaterAid. Then they have a print unseen, which they provide for you. So you can see down on the next page, they provided the print unseen newspaper here. In fact, they provided two. That's a good point, actually. If the media language question is quite simple things like a front cover and there's not a huge amount to say, they might give you two unseen print things to look at for media language. So you just might need to be aware of that. Media language might be two products instead of one, but they will always be things you've not studied as set texts. You can see that the first question, because it's always a video, it will always, the type of video they will show you will always be something you have studied for section A of the Component 1 exam. So you, in theory, well, I hope you've got this right, in theory you have studied TV adverts, print adverts, so TV adverts like WaterAid, print adverts like Tide, film posters like Kiss the Vampire, newspapers, like the Times and the Mirror, set cover, and music videos, which will be Riptide and either Dream or Formation. So, essentially, there's a limited number of things that could come up. Because the first question is always a video, it means the only possible thing that could come up as a clip in the exam for the first question is either a music video or a TV advert, because all the other options are printed and there is always a video question. So there's going to be an unseen music video or an unseen TV advert as the very first question. You just don't know whether it's going to be a media language question or a representation question. The next thing to have a look at is that it tells you very specifically how many times you will get shown it. You will get shown the video clip, whatever it is, music video or TV advert, 3 times. No matter what the question is, you will always be shown it 3 times. You will get a minute to read question 1, hopefully, as long as your invigilators are doing their job. You will then get shown the video clip 3 times. You can watch on the first viewing, and then on the second viewing you can make notes. There will then be a 5-minute timer on the screen, and there'll be a 5-minute gap, and then it will get shown a 3rd time, and then after that time the video will get shut off and you just carry on with the exam. Okay. So in those 3 viewings, you can make notes during 2 of them and in the 5-minute gap in between. And that means you've got to get used to making a lot of notes quite quickly. And that's practice. Practice looking at TV adverts and music videos and thinking, can I write loads of stuff down in, a matter of a few minutes? It's worth noting that whatever clip they show you will be roughly 2 minutes long, and you will then see that 2 minutes 3 times. If it's from a music video, some music videos are like 4 or 5 minutes long or longer, so they will just take an extract from the music video. They might not show you the whole music video, it might just be a portion of it, so it's just something to bear in mind. So, like I said, on this one, it's a representation question, 30 marks. I do have a video about how to answer long 30-mark questions, representation questions, coming up on my channel very soon. And then, like I said, there's a lesser marked media language question, which will always be about something that you have not studied as a set text. But again, it will still be one of the types of set text you have studied. So that the second question, whether it's media language or representation, they will give you either a newspaper front cover or article, or a film poster, or a printed advert. They are the only things that could come up as an unseen for the second question on the exam. And then we go on to section B. This is the section where you have 45 marks, 45 minutes. The questions in section B are stepped, which means that they come in parts. You hear they come in steps, so 3 A, B, C and D, and 4 A and B, and they're all worth slightly different marks. So you've got some that are just worth 2 or 1 marks, 3 marks or 4 marks, some that are worth more like 8, 10 or 12. So you've always got to look at how many marks are available to work out how much time you should be spending on that question. The shorter, lower marked questions will be things like defining a word or explaining a key term or phrase. You might get questions that ask you to identify maybe 3 or 4 things. So maybe you might get a question like explain how different audiences reach through different media technologies and platforms, and you would have to maybe give 3 or 4 reasons for those 8 marks. But there are questions that might require more depth. So how has technological changes had an impact on production and distribution of newspapers? So you'd have to talk about technology, but also the impact on both production and distribution. So it's a more complex question. You will see that in section B, they will tell you what products they want you to speak about. So for example, with 3A, they just say briefly explain what is meant by distribution, but it doesn't tell you have to talk about newspaper distribution or film distribution. It just says distribution, so you can make your answers more general. However, if they say, you've got to talk about it in relation to newspapers, then obviously do that, or they might mention film, etc. If they specify a particular set text, so for example, in 3D here, they say that you've got to refer to the Daily Mirror to support your points, please make sure you do that, because obviously if you don't refer to the Daily Mirror or whatever it is they mention, you will lose marks. Likewise, in 4A, they ask you to refer to Late Night Woman's Hour, and the same in 4B. You can reference or mention other products if you think it's relevant. So, for example, if you were talking about the Daily Mirror in 3D, as long as you got several points in that related to the Daily Mirror, you might be able to put 1 or 2 points in and reference the Times as well, or another newspaper, for example. But as long as you are reading carefully the products that they actually expect you to mention. It's worth noting that for audiences and industries, there are only certain things that could come up. So, for industries, for example, there's radio, video games, newspapers, film. 4. This is what happens when I do it without a list in front of me. And for audiences, there is advertising, newspapers, and video games. I think that's right. I'll try and double check that. If it's wrong, I'll put it on the screen. And in audiences, they won't necessarily, if for example advertising comes up, it's only going to be Tide or WaterAid. Kiss of the Vampire will not come up as an audiences question. So it's worth having a look at the specification or asking your teacher to provide you with a specification to work out what texts could come up in these different sections. It's also worth remembering that newspapers appears in both section A and section B, and this is what confuses some students. If you get newspapers in section A, it will be about your set newspaper covers or articles that you have studied for the Daily Mirror or the Times. If newspapers comes up in section B, you will be talking about the Daily Mirror or the Times in general, and the examples you should be using are either from their websites or from an entire issue or edition of the paper that you have read or studied, rather than the set covers that you're using for section A. And that's quite tricky to remember, so just be aware of that. So that is just a glimpse of what to expect from component 1 for A-Level. And hopefully that helps to settle your mind as to what it's going to look like. And please make sure you check out my video about what to expect for component 2 for A-Level. And if there's anything else you want to know, comment below and I shall see if I can answer.